intellectual teacher. He's all about science, and he has a very intriguing topic to deal with today. As a result, I have to fill my coffee cup even more. Please help me welcome Mr. Rod Witzel. Rod, thank you for coming on. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Clover, for having me
Okay.
on your show.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
So today we're talking about time.
Time.
I just want to cheers to coffee because this is going to be one that intrigues all my guests.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to coffee.
And cheers to time.
Cheers
Time
to
for coffee.
time.
There's always time for
Oh,
coffee.
it's time for coffee. So,
Especially coffee with Clover.
I know, and I'm enjoying that right now. So time, it may seem a bit complex if we get into the details that you're going to be giving us, but can you start from what is time so we have a clear concept?
Yeah. Time. If you ask most people what time is, they would say, oh yeah, I know what time is, but really what they're doing is they're talking about the markers of time. They'll say, well, they'll talk about the watches, an hour, a second, a day, a year. In ancient times, of course, people just had their time was the seasons or the sun up to sundown or phases of the moon. They also had sundials, but not many. Then a few hundred years ago, watches were invented and people became much more time conscious. And now our days, our lives, seem to be ruled by time. Actually, they're ruled by clocks, markers of time. So there's markers of time. But is time more than just markers of time? Does time flow differently in different parts of the universe?
It controls our lives. It dictates everything we do.
Yes, time totally controls our lives. But today I'd like to talk about some aspects of time that most people don't think about. Does time flow everywhere in the universe the same as it does right here on Earth? Those
Does
are
it?
some things. Well, does it? And the question, that is an excellent question. Sir Isaac Newton thought time flowed everywhere the same in the universe. But Einstein showed, and he was actually mocked for it at the beginning, but they proved it through experiments, that time is relational. It's a function of something else. And time started with the universe when the Big Bang and the universe exploded into being. Time was born at that time. Before that, no time. Not as time as we know it anyway. And the universe expanded out, energy condensed into matter, and time was born. And since that, we've had like billions of years of time.
Can we ever slow time down or can we speed it up?
Yeah. So if you watch some of the movies like Back to the Future, can we go backwards in time? Can we go forwards in time? That is a big question. Lots of movies deal with this. But in actuality, let's talk about going backwards in time. Here's the problem of going backwards in time. Let's say I want to go back 100 years or 1,000 years. Say a person wanted to go backwards in time and they went back, if they could, and they went back and they accidentally killed their grandfather, so their father or mother could not be born, so they could not be born. So you have a kind of a paradox here.
How can they go back? They go
Well,
back
the arrow of time points forward, very strongly forward. There have been a few experiments out that say that they can do some sort of time reversal, but I'm not sure they're really doing
That's stopping the clock, maybe.
actually time reversal going back. So I'm going to say, as far as we know, it's impossible to go back in time. Because of the causality factor. If you went back and changed something, then everything in the future, and you might not even exist. So probably not. And the arrow of time seems to point forward. In physics, everything is reversible. The mathematical formulas are reversible to go back. But in actual reality and nature, time continues to move forward from past to present to future.
You just mentioned about going back in time, like with the movie sets. But that would be like literally a movie's coming out, say the 1930s or the 13th centuries. They have in the history books what happened, so they create that. Would you consider that going back in time?
Well, that's imaginary going back in time. So it's a function of inside our head, and we just kind of create a scenario, a stage setting, so it looks like we're going back in time, but there's not really any going back in time. But could you actually go forward in time? Could you actually go into the future? And that's where it becomes interesting. So I'm going to use some of Einstein's theories of relativity to show that actually it probably is possible to go into the future. Maybe a few years into the future, maybe 1,000 years into the future. And Einstein showed there was two ways to do this. Einstein showed that as you go the speed of light is the fastest thing in the universe. It's the speed limit. Nothing goes faster than the speed of light. What's the speed of light? It's approximately 1 billion kilometers per hour. And we talk about light years. A star is like 4 light years away, Alpha Centauri. So it would take you 4 years to get there going the speed of light. The sun is coming down here. It takes about a little over 8 minutes for the photons from the sun to go from the sun to hit us right here. So we have distances here, but as you head towards the speed of light, as you get up close to the speed of light, at 90% of the speed of light, about 900 million kilometers per hour, time would slow down by a half. And then after that, it would start slowing down greatly. Einstein has already, these are theories that have been proved already. So let's take this scenario here. Let's say you and your twin, you're 20 years old, and this is a mind experiment. So your twin's going to stay here, and you're going to get into a rocket ship, accelerate up to the speed of light, which would be difficult to do and take massive energy, but it might be possible in the future to do that, maybe. And you could go up there and you say, I'm going to go away to a planet 10 light years away. So it should take you going the speed of light, or almost the speed of light, should take you roughly 10 years to get there. And then you circle the planet and maybe come back to Earth. So you'd be gone 20 years, 10 years there and 10 years back. So you get in your rocket ship and you pick up your coffee. You say, oh, it's coffee with clover time. And you have a sip of coffee. And they said it was going to take 10 years, but the planet's coming up already. Wow, how did that happen? Because time slowed down. Remember, for you think everything is normal, but time is slowed down because you're going so fast, almost the speed of light. And then you turn around, having a few more sips of your coffee, think about coffee with clover, and you're back on Earth. Now, your sibling who you left comes out to greet you. You're still about 20 years old, maybe a day or so, a few hours, a day or two older. But your sibling is no longer 20. Your sibling is now 40 because 20 Earth years have gone by. So when you go fast and time slows down, everything slows down in your body, but everything seems totally normal to you. Back on Earth time is still going along as usual. So you would go back, your sibling, your twin, they were born at the same time, he'd be 40 years old, and you'd only be still 20 years old. Now that is amazing. We're putting that into something to think about in time. Just expand your mind. By expanding your mind, maybe you'll live a longer time by, have a better health life because you keep your mind active.
But that's a little mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling.
Time slows down for one, but for the other that was left behind, time continues.
Time continues.
So when you
as
return,
usual.
when he or she returns, they're caught up to time?
No, the other person just starts aging normally Earth time. But remember, they're 20 years behind. They're 20 years behind the regular, this twin that's living on Earth here. So if they were both going to live the same, one would live 20 years longer because they're 20 years younger now in terms of time. So yeah, now this is why Einstein, there were people that were smarter than Einstein. Einstein was smart, but he was the first one to come up with these ideas. At first people thought he was crazy, but they proved in experiments that Einstein was absolutely right with this. Now, there's also another way to slow down time and go into the future. Yeah.
So this has nothing to do with our time zone.
It has nothing to do with Earth time zones. No.
Wow, that's very mind-boggling. Okay, so past time error is possible because of the way we can go back in time.
It's probably the arrow of time always points towards the future, so it's highly unlikely that you could ever go backwards in time. I'm not saying ever. They might figure out a way to do it, but there's that causality factor that if you go back and change something in the past, then you change the whole future, okay? So that would be the difficulty. And really, if you could travel backwards in time, wouldn't people from the future already be coming back to visit us? That's another mind-boggling thing, but I'll leave that for another time.
What's so mind-boggling? Okay, the Bible teaches that before the earth was ever formed, there was a void.
Yeah.
And I try to think of the earth having nothing, and I almost went blank. Same thing with time. I try to think of time, future, to come, the past.
Right.
And it's like I was going blank. How is that?
We are prisoners of time. On Earth, humans are prisoners in time. And we think of everything as having a past, a present, and a future. That's how we think. Our brains are totally wired to think that way, and that helps us to survive. But in reality, there was a time when time was born. Time was born at the beginning of the universe. The famous St. Augustine, who lived about over 1,500 years ago, in Rome, the bishops were arguing, what was God doing before he created the cosmos and the world? And St. Augustine said, foolish question. He said, before God created the world, there was no time, because when God created the cosmos and the world, he also created time. So there's no time before. You can't talk about a before time because there is no before. And if you think about it, when they say God is eternal, well, he's outside of time. I mean, he can put his finger into time, and for the Christian, they believe that Christ came into time and space, but God is essentially outside of time. That's why he's in the eternal now. He's in the eternal now. There's no past, there's no future. Everything is there for him. That is very mind-boggling for humans to consider, because our brains are totally wired to think of past, present, and future.
So it's because our brains are wired. Because if you think of it, we're in the middle. Time revolves around us. We do everything by time. Can we actually stop time?
Well, there's another way you can stop time, and Einstein showed that if you went near a large object. So gravity is the stretching of what Einstein called the time-space continuum. He said time and space were essentially the same thing. I know that's mind-boggling too, but he said it stretches. Now think of space as a big sheet. You can move through it. Doesn't stop you. It's easy to move through it. It's sort of a kind of a nothingness, but it's not real nothingness. It's sort of more, if you can think of it as a rubber sheet, and you put a bowling ball in the center of a rubber sheet, would that bowling ball stretch that rubber sheet down a bit? Yes, it would. You put a planet, a star, let's say you put something huge like a black hole that might have millions of times the masses of our sun, even billions of times the mass of our sun. And remember, our sun's about 1 million times bigger than Earth. So you put something that heavy, it would stretch that time-space continuum a lot. And the more you stretch it, the more time slows down. So let's say you could get at just the right point. You don't want to fall into the black hole, or that's it for you in the universe, you're gone. But if you could get a spaceship and you could just stay at the edge of that black hole, just outside of it, because the black hole is the event horizon where the light is even sucked in, so everything's sucked in. So you got to stay beyond that. If the light can get sucked in, your spaceship can get sucked in. So stay beyond that edge. And if you stood there, or in your spaceship, and had your coffee, you would see the universe speeded up going really by, because everything's slowed down for you, because you're right at the edge of that. So let's say you stayed there for maybe 1,000 Earth years, and then you came back. And your watch, you still be living. You might only be a day older. And because your heart's only beating once in a long time. But everything seems normal to you. You have a sip of coffee. You think of the show Coffee with Clover, maybe. And then you go back to Earth. And when you get back there, Earth might be 1,000 or 2,000 years older. And everything you'd say, oh, the cities, everything is gone. All the wars, everything that's happened. Countries have changed. All kinds of things have happened. You'd still be the same. So would you have traveled into the future? Yes, you might have traveled 1,000 years or more into the future, right? Because you stood at a point where time slowed down. Now, what about right here on Earth? A person who's living at the top of a mountain and the bottom of a mountain. The person at the bottom of the mountain has a little more gravity exerted on them than the person at the top, because the farther up you go into space, the less gravity. What do astronauts do in satellites or in rocket ships? They float around in it. Less gravity, microgravity up there. So the person at the bottom would have a little more gravity on them, so time would slow down a little bit more than the person living at the top of the mountain. But the difference would be so little, it'll be a tiny fraction of a second over a lifetime, so it's not going to make any difference to you in reality. So that, and in fact, the person at the top of the mountain might live longer because maybe they have fresher air to breathe or something, cleaner air. So,
right.
And when you travel in an airplane, travel in a car, time actually slows down, but over a lifetime, it's probably way less than a fraction of a second. So it's not really going to make any difference right here in our lifetime.
Saying about the airplane, okay, I've been to Europe, right?
Yep.
And when I return to North America, when I get there, my body has to adjust to the time zone that's there. When I get back here, I have to adjust. Take you a couple days too to adjust. this time I should be sleeping, but no, you do not want to sleep because it's a different time zone. How do you explain that?
Well, the time that, first of all, there's a psychological phenomenon is that your brain is wired to a certain time of getting up, and your nervous system, everything is wired to that. So when you come back here, it's a little bit different here. People are getting up a few hours different. It doesn't fit in with Einstein's theories. It fits in basically with the neurological and nervous systems of your body, that they just have to adjust to a new time zone. And it takes people, like, you might be sleeping on this term, and your body has an internal clock. And so, but it can adjust the internal clock. But that's not officially making time slow down or speed up or anything like that. It's just the body adjusting physiologically and psychologically to a different time zone.
Okay, that's interesting. Wow. It's mind-boggling still.
It is mind-boggling.
How about living longer? How does that factor into time?
Well, yeah, most people say, I'm probably not going to near a black hole, or probably not going to go up near the speed of light to live longer. Actually, you wouldn't actually live any longer. You'd actually live longer, but it wouldn't seem you were living longer because everything is slowed down. So if you want to live longer, and that is a good time question, a timely question, especially as you get a little older, you want to live a little longer. So I would say one of the most important facts to live longer is to have lots of friends, develop social connections. Social connections are one of the most important things you can have to live longer. I mean, loneliness is a killer, isn't it, right? So get lots of social connections in your life, eat healthy, and personally for me, I take NAC with glycine. And NAC has been shown in mice and in humans to extend life significantly.
Okay.
So even though I'm over 100 years old, because of my NAC, actually, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not over 100 years old. Okay, just kidding.
My viewers know that. They know that. Yeah.
So have social connections, eat healthy, exercise, stay young. Just do things that are young. Don't act like an old person.
Yeah. Be positive.
Be positive.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's a wrap can you put on time? Overall time, because it's going right now.
Yeah.
We are on timing right here on set.
Yep. And we have a sense of time passing. Scientists are actually puzzled about time too. Scientists have no one specific definition on exactly what is time. They still argue over exactly what is time. Some scientists think time is illusionary, it's not real. Other scientists think it's real. But for us living right here, we say time is money. That's probably one of the great expressions.
Yeah.
Time is money, or
That's
time heals all things,
Yeah.
or things like that. There's a time for everything. So today we just want to we talked about time a little bit on the intellectual side, about how to go into the future. Could we go into the past? Probably not. Enjoy your time here on Earth. Warren Buffett, 92 years old. He says, don't worry about what you eat. Don't worry about what you do. Just enjoy what you're doing and drink lots of Coke. Of course, he owns the Coke companies through his shareholding.
Okay.
And so he drinks lots of Coke. So most people would say, don't drink too much Coke. I probably don't drink too much Coke. A little bit, but not too much. But anyway, I'm saying is enjoy what you're doing, and your time here on Earth, well, you'll have a good time. And that's the important thing. Have a healthy time, a good time, a successful time. Have a life that means something, helping others, and then you'll have spent your time wisely. So spend your time wisely.
Okay, thank you so much, Rod. And time waits for no man, and that's the wrap right here. Coffee with Clover. Thank you for watching another segment. Let's cheers to coffee.
Yes.
It's about time we cheers to coffee.
And it's a timely topic. And cheers to Coffee with Clover.
See you next time.